facing the economic changes that we've seen through the crisis particularly, but also the changes in the regulatory environment have really created, I think, a sense of unmooring because the rules aren't clear. And so now that is different than previous cycles. They are really feeling around for how do we get to a more agile position so that we can move depending upon both changes in the overall environment economically as well as how the rules are going to be written. And I think that that's a fundamental difference. First, there's acknowledgement of what's real. And that's a big part of the discussion with senior leaders, is to get grounded. And get grounded in what's happening today and how this is different than previous cycles. So that is a difference in the approach. The second area is to understand what the core of the core business is. Often organizations, for various reasons, have adjacent activities. And what I've done in my consulting career, and certainly what organizations like Bain focus upon, is to focus on the core. And so we spend a lot more time saying what is really core, what's an adjacency worth pursuing, what are areas which are not worth pursuing, because you'll never be able to be either a large or dominant share player in those businesses. They'll never be profitable for you. And I think that this time has really required organizations to be a lot more hard-headed about that. Organizational change is hard under all circumstances. As people, we're pretty hardwired to basically continue in whatever direction we're heading. The organizations that I've worked with, there are probably a handful of things that the successful ones do, and those who struggle obviously don't do as well. You know, one is those who are successful create a picture of what we say is the beach. You know, it's really getting people to understand what the point of arrival could be, and that point of arrival needs to be compelling enough so that people are willing to change behavior. And often it's vague. People don't understand what that might look like, and because of that, they don't know exactly why they should change, and inevitably don't as fully as they need to. You know, a second area of success for companies is getting engagement from the front line all the way up to the leadership team. And that is more time consuming. It requires a lot more discussion and debate. But when you do it, you get everyone engaged in a way that makes them feel like they have stake in the changes that are about to take place. When you don't do it, you end up with a lot of broken loops where folks on the front line in particular, those who are against the customer, don't often know exactly why a particular change is being contemplated, and hence they either don't do it or they don't explain it to the customer in such a way that the customer wants to go along with it. Changes I've been involved in, successful changes I've been involved in, more often than not, it is pursuing an opportunity rather than running from a threat. But you know, you could see both. There's a chance to be able to take a well-run company and they believe they can get to the next level. And so in those cases, the message is much more inspirational to the team. It's about creating something that's insanely great, in the words of Steve Jobs. And in those cases, that is, I think, a very powerful message because people really do want to do a great job. In the cases where you find obstacles to change, it's usually not the top tier because they have access to the information, they see what their competitive position is, they understand why they need to do something differently. It's often not the frontline tier because they know they're against the customer every day. They see what's happening in the marketplace because they're living in the marketplace. They understand that change is inevitable and they have to do something different. It's the middle tier. And if you think about the wiring diagram of an organization, the incentive structure, obviously the organization structure, the reporting structure, all goes through that middle tier, and that can get calcified over time. People might like those roles. They don't have the benefit necessarily of the senior leadership, where they have the access to the information, and they're a level or two or three away from the customer, where they don't feel every day the need to change something. And so that group needs to be convinced. And that becomes the challenge of the organization, is how do I get that group to buy in to what we need to do next?